History of movies. My history with movies. The first movies I remember watching, I know particular order, but these would include the movies that caused the impact on me, the life-changing moment in time for each of these movies. Each time I would watch one of these movies, then in some way my life would be changed. The course of my life would be altered in some way because of this movie, or this book, or this painting, or this record, or record album, or cassette tape, or VHS tape, or CD, or possibly a DVD, direct to DVD, possibly even, independent movie, independent film, independent art, comic books, whatever it is that upon the encounter your life has changed. That is what I'm going to be talking about. These are the movies I'm now going to be saying to you now in this order, only because I remember them now in this order. Not because these are I'm telling you these movies in the order that they are my favorite movies, or that I'm ranking them as in the best movies or whatever. No, that's not what I'm doing. This is a history of me and movies. And I'm just telling it as best as I can remember as I go along here. So, but also, I think these are some of my favorite movies as well. And I will tell you, I did see a couple movies that were really bad. I think they actually made me sick. And I'll tell you, one of them was The Treasure of the Four Crowns. And that was in 3D. And that was horrible. It was awful. It was one of the worst movies ever made. I think I actually made me sick. I think it was called The Treasure of the Four Crowns, or The Treasure of the Three Crowns, or something like that. Another one I remember seeing in theaters in sometime around, I must have been in 7th grade. And this was Popeye with Robin Williams. And I remember just being disappointed when I saw it. And I don't remember what year that came out, but it was probably late 70s, early 80s, possibly 1980. But the first movie I remember watching, a couple of the first movies I remember watching as a kid. Oh, Rocky is another one, but this is later. The earlier movies I remember watching were, one was Mutiny on the Bounty, and I think that Clark Gable was in this version of it, this particular movie, Mutiny on the Bounty. And I do not remember who was playing Captain Bligh. But that was a movie that also had an impact on me, and it in some way caused me to think in a lot of the ways that I do today. And that was Mutiny on the Bounty, that I think I must have watched that movie maybe when I was, I'm going to say 6 or 7. That's what I'm going to say, because there are other things that were going on at the time that placed me, that I know where I was when I watched it, and I know that I watched it before other things happened. And so I believe I was about 6 or 7 years old when I first watched Mutiny on the Bounty, and I believe that was the version with Clark Gable. And then also, one of the first books I remember seeing, earliest memory of a book, one of the first memories ever that I ever had of anything was looking at a book that had a picture of Superman and Batman on the front of the book. And I remember where it was and when I saw it, or rather where I was standing when I saw it. And you walk in the door there, and to the left there is a bed and kind of an area that's kind of like a bedroom area, and then to the right there's a closet, and then if you keep going straight ahead there's a little bookshelf right there. and there's a stack of books in there, and then one of those books was, on the front of it was a picture of Superman and Batman. And so now I'm pretty sure that was a World's Finest. I'm pretty sure that was an issue of World's Finest. I'm pretty sure. So I wonder what issue that was, and I wonder what happened to it. But that was one of the books also that helped shape my thinking about how the world looks. And then following that, I do remember while also watching To Kill a Mockingbird. And of course, To Kill a Mockingbird, Gregory Peck as Atticus Finch. And don't want to give any spoilers on that movie, but that's another one of those movies that I remember, and it is imprinted in my brain. And this is one of the movies that I always remember watching it, and I've always loved rewatching it. Oh, also speaking of movies that I've always loved rewatching it, It's a Wonderful Life. Man, that's a good one. I think written and directed by Frank Capra. It's a Wonderful Life. It's a Wonderful Life with Jimmy Stewart. Let me say that one more time. It's a Wonderful Life with Jimmy Stewart. Yeah, I think written and directed by Frank Capra. Yeah, that was much better. And then, of course, there were a lot of Disney movies growing up. Just a lot of different movies. I remember movies like The Shaggy DA and Freaky Friday, The Shakiest Gun in the West, No Deposit, No Return, Herbie the Love Bug, those kind of movies. But The Black Hole, that was interesting. I remember when The Black Hole came out, and that was a pretty good movie. You know what, I think that looking back on The Black Hole, man, that was really something for its time. I mean, as a kid, I watched The Black Hole, and I thought, this thing is like, it was kind of scary. That was pretty good. It kind of scared me. It was kind of scary. I don't mean that it scared me. It was a pretty heavy-duty movie for a Disney movie. And I think it came out possibly 78 or 79. I think it came out after Star Wars. Okay, now speaking of Star Wars, but before I get to Star Wars, because I saw Star Wars in 1977, and I was 10 years old, and so this will tell you how old I am possibly now if you want to do all your math. Or rather, including based on maybe when I was born, if you want to do your math. But I was 10 years old when I first saw Star Wars in theaters in a city named San Bernardino in the state of California. And I saw it at a location that is, the building is no longer there. I saw it at the Central City Mall. And I don't remember if this was a General Cinema or what it was, but it was the Central City Mall in downtown San Bernardino, right there on E Street. And kind of 2nd Street, I think. And they had a JCPenney there, and Montgomery Ward, Woolworth, and Woolco. You can get an Orange Julius and all that stuff. And we saw Star Wars there in 1977. And you'd go to the front, buy your ticket. They had a little ticket marquee there. You'd get your ticket, and then you could go around just to the right and get your snacks or whatever you wanted, popcorn, candy, drink, soda pop, whatever. And then you walk a little bit more past that, and then you encounter this little stanchion there where you just wait behind the line, and then somebody takes your ticket, and then you enter into this area past the stanchion, and you take about 2 steps forward, and then you turn to the left, and there's a long hallway that goes down to the left. And I believe there were 4 or 6 theaters in there, I think there were 4 or 6 theaters in there. And I don't remember how many were showing Star Wars on that day, and this is back in the old days where you didn't have assigned seating, and they were not recliner seats. Nothing was comfortable. Some of the seats were ripped up. They were padded, and I think it was a smoke-free environment, so there was no smoking in the theaters at this time, 1977, at least where we were. I think so. And 10 years old, sat down, didn't even have THX sound. As soon as it started, never saw anything like it, man. My life changed completely, absolutely. But I'll get to that in a minute. The next piece of art, book, or movie that I will talk about that I have encountered along the way that was important to me, that was life-changing, is the record. I had a record player, and on this record player I would play all kinds of records, all kinds of Disney records or whatever. But I had one Disney record that came from Santa Claus. I know this for a fact because Santa delivered it to my house. I think probably when I was about the age of 6. I remember asking Santa Claus for this, as well as a couple of other items that I also got from Santa Claus on this particular Christmas day. And I'm not sure exactly what the year is here, but I will tell you that I think I was about 6 years old. And if I saw Star Wars in 77 and I was 10, well, you can do all your math on that and figure it out. I can just tell you this. About age 6, I got this really cool thing from Santa, and it was a record, and it was Davy Crockett, King of the Wild Frontier, with Fez Parker as Davy Crockett and Buddy Ebsen as Georgie Russell, doing the voices on this record. And of course, this is the Walt Disney's Davy Crockett, King of the Wild Frontier. Music, script, actors, sound effects, the works, everything. And it is magnificent. I still have the record today. I over the course of the years, I lost the record somewhere, and then eventually I ended up getting another one. It came back to me. And I am grateful to the universe for bringing it back to me, because I now have this wonderful piece of art that not only helped to shape how I think and who I am, and of course it's the fictionalized version of Davy Crockett. It's a story. It's a made-up story. But it's based on facts in many ways. As much as we attempt to tell the truth, we base much of what we do on myth and on made-up stories about things that are true if you go back far enough. But I have always enjoyed this fictionalized story. I'm not going to say fictionalized. Yes, I will say fictionalized. This particular story, as it's told, this version of Davy Crockett, it's the Walt Disney version, I'll put it that way. And it's a great story. And, you know, if there was ever a person that anybody should want to be like, and if they were like this person, if everybody was like this person, the world would just probably be a better place. And I'm talking about the Walt Disney version of Davy Crockett, King of the Wild Frontier. I'm talking about that version, right? And just pick your version. And this is a great version. It's like, oh, now let's get to Star Wars. So up to Star Wars, 1977, I must have listened to this record, I would say, let's say, 365 days a year for 2 years. So roughly that's 1,200 times. But since it's probably more like 3 times a day, so then that's probably going to be more like 3,600 times in, what did we say, 3 years, 2 years, whatever it is. I did some math on this one day, and I figured that from the time I got the record to the time I saw Star Wars, I must have listened to that record over and over, because I would just play it on repeat over and over and over and oh, I also had the G.I. Joe records and all the G.I. Joe books. The toys, you'd get the toys, the big 12-inch figures, and then you could get the books and records. So I had those too. Those were a lot of fun. But this Davy Crockett record, man, this was a good one. And I know it's made up, so I don't, great. You can say all you want about it's all made up and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I know that. It's all made up. But it's a beautiful story. And it's one of my favorite versions of Davy Crockett. And it is my favorite version of just about anybody. Walt Disney's Davy Crockett, King of the Wild Frontier. Okay, now, moving on to Star Wars. When I saw Star Wars, that is when the trajectory of my movie going and movie experiencing, movie consuming life began, if you will, where I began to look at movies as something to enjoy that I didn't know I could before. I wanted to see movies on purpose now because I wanted to see them. And Star Wars made me want to do that. Okay, that's another topic. But the characters in Star Wars, this was the first time I ever, besides Davy Crockett, that I ever wanted to be a character, or possibly Hong Kong Phooey, or Superman. But these were cartoons, you see, these weren't movies. But that I wanted to be one of these characters. I definitely wanted to be Han Solo. And I think I had a black vest. No, I didn't have a black vest. I had a white shirt. It was a white dress-up shirt. And I would wear that white dress-up shirt, and then I had some kind of a black coat that went on over it, and that was like my Han Solo outfit. I had everything. I had the blaster. We had the lightsabers. But these movies were inspirational to bringing us to a different world and to seeing humanity and to see people building alliances and making friends. To overcome hardship and evil and to bring about justice and hope to the galaxy. Man, this was big stuff for a kid, 10 years old. I saw this when I was 10 years old. 1977. Use the Force, Luke. Obi-Wan Kenobi, Alec Guinness, Mark Hamill, Han Solo, Princess Leia. Well, Mark Hamill, I meant to say Luke Skywalker as played by Mark Hamill, but I didn't have time to go through all the characters and actors. And of course, C-3PO is played by Anthony Daniels, Sir Anthony Daniels, and then R2-D2 is played by Kenny Baker. And then, of course, Peter Mayhew as Chewbacca. Or as Lando calls him, Chewbacca. So, yeah, Star Wars, man, that was a big one. And from there on, I would say about the age of 10 and seeing Star Wars, everything has been kind of measured up against that one. That was the standard. Superman, the movie, all-time classic. Spider-Man, directed by Sam Raimi, all-time classic. Hey, there's a lot of movies in between there that I got to get to. A lot of movies in there. I will say too many movies to mention here in this one because I'm going over time as it is. But just to name a few, Who Framed Roger Rabbit? And these are not just great movies. These are movies that I love. These are movies that I love, that had a great effect on me and that left a big impact on my life and moved me. They actually changed the trajectory of my life for various reasons. For a lot of reasons, and I'll get into that on another segment. But today's program, I had to start the list. The earliest movies I remember watching: To Kill a Mockingbird. What was the first one? Man, I can't even remember it. Oh, Mutiny on the Bounty, and then Davy Crockett, King of the Wild Frontier, Walt Disney's version, and then, of course, Star Wars. Man, 1977. Oh, another one I watched on television was Last of the Mohicans. And this one was the one that had been came out in around sometime in the early 70s, I think. And I do remember that one, left a big impact on my thinking as well. And framed and moved the course of how I would think for how I would then later frame a lot of the way I would see things in the world. That movie, that version, and I think that one was made possibly in early or mid 1970s. And that's it for the list today, unless I can remember any more that pop up into my brain before I say goodbye. Nope, this is only part one. Partial list of all the movies that I've ever encountered, my history with movies, and this is not even getting into the nuts and bolts of it. This is just naming the movies. Okay, well that's it for tonight, for today, and for tomorrow, my dear friends. And until we meet again, keep these words in mind, words from the wise and powerful Jedi, Qui-Gon Jinn, as he spoke these words to Anakin Skywalker in Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, written and directed by George Lucas. An all-time epic masterpiece. And of course, remember, producer Rick McCallum and executive producer George Lucas. Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, an all-time epic masterpiece. And so, friends, keeping these words in mind, as we now go our separate ways until we come together again, these words from the wise and powerful Jedi, Qui-Gon Jinn. Remember, your focus determines your reality. And may the Force be with us.